Good afternoon, everybody. As I was listening to John, I was actually trying to recall how we met, and it just seems sometimes you just meet a person and you feel comfortable immediately. And after feeling ridiculous that John knew far more about Black history than I did, I accepted that, and in fact was inspired by it. John is an exceptional person on many levels, but certainly one of the most knowledgeable persons that I've met, period, regardless of race, on Black history. He continues to inspire me, to educate me, and so I'm indeed pleased to be here today. Thank you for the invitation, John. And so he was telling me to basically just talk about the Blazer and how the Blazer got started, why the Blazer got started. The Blazer was started in, I don't know, have many people, have you seen the Blazer before? Okay, cool. This is a copy of this is the December edition of the Blazer. But the Blazer was founded in 1963. Actually, in 63, the first edition of the Blazer rolled off the press. In 1962, an unlikely partnership began between my brother, Ben Wade, and a man by the name of Charles Cade. Ben Wade was an exceptional writer. He was noted in high school by one of his teachers that he had a gift for writing and he had a passion for journalism. And on the other hand, Charles Cade was a businessman, kind of a street hustler kind of guy. And so the two got together. They founded the Jackson Blazer. Now, most of you in here look too young to be able to relate to the 60s, so. But those of you who can, you know that the 60s was a dynamic decade, especially when we look back in retrospect, how so many things happened in the 60s. And the birth of the Blazer began primarily because of, it being the civil rights era. And as John mentioned about the lack of Black people in the mainstream paper, on most occasions, if you saw a Black person in the paper, it was usually negative. Usually who robbed, who raped, who murdered. And that was not an indication of the community as a whole. And that was one of the reasons that the Blazer was founded, to give not only to give African Americans a voice in the community, but to present the positive achievements in the community. And they didn't have to be outlandish, it didn't have to be anything of great significance, just the fact that if you, if you got a promotion on your job, if you turned 80, if, things that need to be celebrated, things that need to be acknowledged, as opposed to somebody robbing, killing, and raping. And so that was kind of the mission of the Blazer back then. I remember as a kid, and I was one of the first newsboys in '63, that there was a buzz in the community about this paper, and primarily the church community. The church community supported the Blazer wholeheartedly, and not from a spiritual perspective, but just because that community primarily was the backbone of the Black community. And so the church community really took the Blazer and helped this fledgling publication survive for now 57 years. And you must keep in mind, as I was mentioning before, that this community, the African American community, when I look back, some of the role models that we had as young people were not positive role models. They were even drug dealers or even drug dealers, pimps, hustlers, because on the outside, visibly, they looked successful. They drove the nice cars, whether it be short-lived or not. I'm sure that as society has proven, there's no future in selling drugs and things of that nature. But to younger people, these were your role models. And so this narrative had to change. And that was one of the missions of the Blazer, to report, to publish stories of people making positive accomplishments, to let you know, to let African Americans know, hey, that you can go to college, that you can achieve. You don't have to, take the underworld way, that you can go through the process. A few years ago at Jackson College, we did a thing called See the Vision, Be the Vision. And this was, as basic as it may seem, this was very, very important to young kids to see a lawyer other than on television, to see a black person as a professor, to see a black person as a doctor, to know that one day you can also achieve this status, to see, even from a political realm, to see just success right before you. And so that was one of the certainly one of the missions of the Blazer. And it still is one of the missions of the Blazer today. We don't publish stories of negativity. They exist, sure, but we promote the accomplishments, the positive accomplishments of our community, whether it be athletic, academic, political, or the workforce. And it's not 1963 anymore, obviously. And even though our publication may target the African American community, we like to feel like in 2020, or even before that we are a community newspaper now. Even the dynamics of the African American family has changed, so it would be unfair to just say that you're strictly a black paper. So I became publisher. Well, let me back up a little bit. Ben Wade and Charles Cade, they founded this paper in '63. The paper itself would only provide an income for one. So Ben, he left the paper and he became a reporter for the Toledo Blade. He worked down there for a number of years, and I don't know if some of you remember, but in 1969, Charles Cade was murdered. Does anybody recall that news? Okay, yeah. Charles Cade was murdered in 1969. The murder today is still unsolved. There's a lot of speculation as to who, what, why, when, and the purpose, but nevertheless, the murder was unsolved. Ben, in turn, came back to Jackson, took over the helm, took over the reins as the publisher of the Blazer, and him being my brother, after I got out of college, but let me just tell you that, as a young person, I resented the Blazer. I did not want to work for the Blazer because I wanted a job that had a salary, and you could only work for commission. So that meant extra work, and as a young fella, that wasn't my idea of a job. And so I worked for him, here and there, intermittently, and later on, which turned out to be 30 years of working for a paper that you resented. So, and I certainly had no intention of one day buying this publication and becoming the publisher. But Ben Ben published the paper for some 30 years. He received, this community has supported it pretty much wholeheartedly. Obviously, it's for us to be in existence for almost 60 years. But in 2005, I became the publisher. And reluctantly, because I was not a journalist like Ben, I didn't have the qualifications that he had, but I had a passion for my community. And I had a passion for people. I like to feel that the Blazer is a reflection of who I am. And you know, my whole life indicates that I have friends from many backgrounds and different cultures, and so that's what you can find in the pages of the Blazer today. Yeah, it's difficult at times, but the community still has embraced this publication, and we feel like that we present the news and views in an unbiased manner. We don't compare ourselves to the mainstream publication. We don't even consider it competition, but the news that you find in the Blazer are strictly community-related news. You know, you can go on the internet and find, you know, most national and statewide stories. But on a local basis, you know, you can go to our website, but we focus our attention on the local accomplishments of this community as we've done for the past 50 years. So that is that's my charge, and God willing, I'll continue to do so. So wrapping it up, it's been a pleasure for me to publish the Blazer primarily because of the people that I've come in contact with. I probably would not have met John if I didn't publish the Blazer, and many other people. I'm looking around here for a familiar face, but I really don't see any other than the ones I just met this morning. But nevertheless, I love Jackson and I love people, and so as long as I stay healthy, I will continue to work in this capacity. So if you have any questions for me, yes. We publish twice a month. Yes, twice a month. The Blazer in the early days published weekly, but that was before the population of Jackson, 40% of it decided to go elsewhere, and the community could support a weekly paper. But now we publish every 2 weeks. Yes.
Are the papers, do you have like a delivery thing, or like if we were going to?
We have both. We have subscriptions. We're located in most party stores around town, all churches, schools, hospital. The businesses, it has a 50-cent price tag on it, but usually when you see that, sometimes it's confusing to some people because the businesses often purchase the paper and then in turn they give it free to their patrons. But some places they don't and they charge. So, but it's all over Jackson County. But you can if you want a subscription, you can see me. But yeah, we have subscriptions. Yes. Yes, we mail it. Yes.
Do you have a list on your website where they're distributed?
Absolutely. Our website is thejacksonblazer.com. If you want to visit us and get a little more information, you can visit us and find out where we distribute and how often, and then view some of the news, some of our content.
Any more questions for Alan or I? Here's one. Oh, yeah.
Do financial institutions have your paper? Do they provide, for example, banks?
Such as banks and, are you asking me, do we deliver there? Yes, and, well, I know of two of them we do. I know we drop papers off at Flagstar and over at American One Credit Union on Michigan. Yes, those are two of the financial institutions that have our paper.
You sell advertising?
Pardon me?
Do you sell advertising?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the lifeblood of our publication. And we are trying, our goal really, if the community will support us, we want to get back weekly, because oftentimes 2 weeks is just a large gap to report news. And so we would love to be weekly again, but being realistic, we'd have to, get the support of the community to advertising primarily to allow us to do that.
Can you tell us what your circulation is?
Our circulation is 6,000. We publish 6,000 papers each issue, and which turns into 12,000 a month. We have, based on twice a month, that would be with 24 issues, right? But we publish 30 issues a year because we have some special issues throughout the year, which turns into about 30 per year.
Who are the reporters?
You want?
Right, doesn't sound like
Actually, I contract with several people when there's a story to be done. I do a lot of writing. If you want to do a story, you can do one. We have some contributing writers. We're interested in the kind of things that you're interested in. If your mom turns 80 and has a nice birthday celebration, we want to be there to cover it. That's news to us. Family news, that's news to us. What's important to you is important to us. Did you have a question? Oh, okay.
Thank you, Alan.
All right.
For coming and sharing with us. We really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, John.